Hello everyone, in this video you are going to learn how to specify propose, research questions, and hypothesis. So in research there are important elements that must be stated clearly. That is propose statement, research question, hypothesis, and objective. So purpose statements is actually statement that show the direction of the study. It's different from research questions. Research questions is a questions that become the part of proposed statements, but in a more specific way that help the researcher to find the answer. So it's usually start with the research questions, the word research words of research questions such as double-edged question, what, where, how, why, and also yes/no question, do or does. And it ends with the question mark. While hypothesis is actually for quantitative, it's a statement that become the assumption or predictions of the relationship among the characters that attributes in the research question. So, for example, if the research question is there any significant influence of students' vocabulary on students' ability in speaking, then the hypothesis might be the null hypothesis, and there is no any relationship or correlation between vocabulary mastery and then students' ability in speaking. With the, let's say, p-value, the probability is less than 0.5. While research objective is a statement that actually used in quantitative research to specify the goals that researchers plan to achieve in the study. They all are related to each other. How are they different? Let's see in the example to see it clearly. This is the examples of proposed statements. The purpose of this study is usually start with the exact word, in explicit way. The purpose of this study is, and then if it is investigating the relationship, then you might say to examine the relationship between the use of internet communication between teachers and parents in Midwestern School District and student achievement on tests in high school studies. Please see the what's in the brackets here to examine the relationship. It's show the focus, and then between it's come to the specific topic, and then it's come to the area, Midwestern School District, and then it's come to a different the relationship between internet communication of teacher and parents, and then student achievement on the test, and then it come to the specific site in high school student, a specific institution. So here is the examples of how to write proposed statements. Well, for the research questions, it might start with the yes/no question, like, do parents teacher internet communication affect student performance in the classroom? It's become more specific. See how it's different from proposed statements and research questions. Or let's say start with the double-edged question. What types of internet experience do parents have with teachers about the performance of their parents' children? This is a kind of qualitative study. This one, do, or let's say does, is the yes/no question that usually appears in quantitative quantitative approach or quantitative studies. Well, usually for the question like what and how, it's referred to the research in qualitative approach or qualitative field. Now let's come to hypothesis. Hypothesis is usually appears in quantitative study. See the example: student in high school in the school district in which teacher and parents communicate through the internet will have higher grades than student whose parents and teacher do not communicate through internet. Let's say this is the hypothesis or the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis of this is probably there is no, if the quantitative the hypothesis in a quantitative is student in high school, students in school in which teacher and parents communicate through the internet will have higher grades than students whose parents and teacher do not communicate. The null hypothesis might be those students whose parents do not communicate with the teachers through internet might have lower grade compared lower grade. That's the null hypothesis. But this one is the example of alternative hypothesis. Meanwhile, for research objective, this is the example. First, to describe the frequency of internet communication between parents and teachers regarding parents' children in high school social studies. Second, to describe the types of internet communication between teacher and parents and to relate the frequency and types of communication achievement in class examined by students' performance on tests. Here, the objective is 1, 2, 3 is actually still are still relates. Those objectives are still those objectives still relates to the research question, the proposed statement there, but in a more clear way. So this is the examples of how to write proposed statement, research question, hypothesis, and research objective. Now in writing down all of them, let's come to the variables. Variables is actually data or the specific characteristic of a person or community, or let's say the attribute, feeling, behavior, or thought of different participants. This is a aspect that needs to be identified in the study. It might be independent variables, get teaching methods, or control variables. Independent is the one that influence the others, not depends on the others. And control variables is the variables that might control the, let's say, the relation or the interaction between independent and dependent variable. And then moderating variables, that is interaction effect, that moderate the interaction between independent and dependent. And confining variable, that is variable that can be controlled, while dependent variable is the type of variables. It might be continuous or in a categorical way. Independent variables as well may be continuous or in a categorical way. It's important to differentiate those type of data, but I will explain more in different video. For now, you might want to see how independent variables influence or affect dependent variables. For example, students' grade here. But there are some other factors that might be influenced, like the time, the attitude, as well as the socioeconomic background, or let's say the previous knowledge or skills. So here it might come with the intervening variable, for example, different facilities available and used by the participants. Now let's see how the purpose of the statements are written in quanti and quali. In quantitative, you can see the example is the purpose of the study is to test class and theory by relating teaching method, independent variable, to student motivation, dependent variable, at the University of Papua in Manokwari. This is a quantitative to test the theory, While this one qualitative, you can see the examples is the purpose of this qualitative study will be to explore or discover or understand or describe the central phenomenon. Pay attention here, the central phenomenon that you need to mention, that the concept or the process or the view explored in qualitative. And then participants, you need to mention the participant and then the research site. This is how to write the purpose of statement for a qualitative study. So this is the example. The purpose of this qualitative study is to describe the classroom learning using the internet to 5 high school students participating in a sign language class. It's quite different. One is to test and the other to explore or to understand the concept or the phenomenon. The next one is the example of research questions. When come to quantitative, it might start with yes/no question, but when come to qualitative, it might start with certain double-edged question like what, how. So here is the example. For quantity, the student who spend more instructional time in class on English have a higher English scores than student who spend less time. In qualitative, it might ask, what was the role of the college administration in the curriculum committee deliberation? Another thing that become the focus of research question is how frequently do students or participants attend the class that they like, or how is the percentage of students who have high motivation in learning English. So this is a kind of let's say question that might want to see the general situation. So it might use, let's say, descriptive statistic to describe the situation. Well, for this one, we might start how is the perception. So it's look for the view or the perception or the experience. Let's say, how is the perception of English teachers on professional teaching or good teaching? So in this way, try to understand the perspective of the teachers, what they understand about professional teaching, or what they think about good teaching, what they know about or what they assume about good teaching. In quantitative, we may use how does teaching style, let's say, influence to see the cause and effect or the cause and impact. But in qualitative, they might want to understand, so how are the student perspective or views on good learning in English classroom at Papua University. So here's try to understand students' perspective on good learning in English classroom. So there is no any assumption made, but they try to understand student perspective or students' point of view. While in this area, they try to see or make inferences how teaching style might influence student motivation in learning. This is the example that might be very helpful for you when you write your own research question for your own proposal or report or scriptsy. Now let's come to the examples of null hypothesis. For hypothesis, there are two types of hypothesis. First is null hypothesis, and the second is alternative hypothesis. Usually, only with null hypothesis in a quantitative study, it's enough. The one alternative hypothesis not really stating, it's okay. Null hypothesis usually for the negative one, and then while alternative hypothesis for positive ones. For example, here there is no difference, blah blah blah, while for alternative there is significant, blah blah blah. That's all. Have a great day. Good luck with your study.